All right. Let's take a look at this VOD. See if my internet will like even itself out a little bit while we do this, so we're not fucking sliding all over the goddamn map. Um, this is gonna be interesting, I think. Hopefully, it's useful. Oh, thanks for the follow, Chaz. Chaz Smurfed. Appreciate that. What am I looking for here? Yeah. I think this is going to be interesting just to take a look at some of the meta stuff and just generally some of the things that people are telling me I can do to improve. Uh, Obviously, this is sort of for support, but I do think that some of this can be useful for your own games, just in terms of like understanding how you can play better. So it's from SkillCapped. Let's take a look. We can sort of respond to it as we go.
Hey, how's it
Okay,
going, Keys?
there you go.
Sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Keys. That's it. Keys. Nailed it. Keep going.
My name is Abu. I go by Abu222 on the NA ladder, and I've hit Challenger Seasons 4 through 10, and I've peaked rank 10, and I'm going to be going over your game today. So the first thing that I want to get into going to this VOD is going to be your composition. First, that's the very first.
So, real quick, before we go any further, you may remember this. We're playing this, for those of you who weren't here, this was like approximately a Gold 2 game. Yeah, like we're playing Muse Sona. This is us. We had a Camille top, a pretty brain dead Ash bot. I feel like it was an okay Lee Sin. Actually, no, it was Camille mid, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Camille mid. So it was like pretty AD heavy. We were put in a position where we kind of had to try and carry the AP as best we could. We were going into Singed, Monkey King, Zed, Vayne, and Lux. And he'll cover that in a sec, but I think it's just important to understand like some of the context here. Like we picked, I think third or second, and the Vayne, the Camille mid kind of fucked us in terms of damage count. But let's keep on.
First thing you should think about when you're in champion select, thinking about like how does my champion pick affect like these champions on my team and also the enemy champions, and also in loading terrain thinking about how does like my job change because of the different champions in the game. Now, a good way you can start to get good at this and just
It's exclamation mark skins in the chat. I just reopened. We're at 1350. We'll be probably giving it away either after the next game, I think. That's what we'll be doing.
practicing this skill is going to be just thinking about one ability you should watch out for on the enemy team and thinking about like how generally you want to play with your team in contrast. Now, I'm going to go into more depth here with my analysis, but that's just like a good way you can start. So let's go ahead and do your team first. When it comes to your team, Shen, most important thing in the early game is going to be when he's level 6, you can ping him to get the ult. They're going to have to play around his ult. Don't like expect him to be watching you in ult, but definitely like you can let him know or you can ping him or something along those lines. But you do have the Shen. Other than that, I'd say
Wait, Cox, appreciate the file. Yeah, yeah. So hang on. We'll keep going.
team fights you can look out for is like if you know his taunt's gonna come out first, wait for that, then use your ult because it's gonna be usually easier to land a Shen taunt than a Sona ult.
This was like, for some reason, when he said that, I was like, oh fuck, of course. It's something that for whatever reason, I had never considered, which makes me feel so stupid. But like, obviously, all that Chen has to do is a point click and land it, particularly in team fights. So like, regardless of whether or not he comes down with his ult or TP, like it's something that we could definitely do to like improve our landing rate on our ults, which is obviously something that we're kind of hit or miss on. So that was kind of interesting.
That's just like a general thing. So next thing is gonna be the Lee Sin. Lee Sin really not much to do with Sona. Just look out for his kick. Maybe you can combo ult. Yeah, not much. Most of the early game when it comes to Lee Sin is gonna be, is he near me? Can I go aggressive because he's near me? Something along those lines. And I'm gonna switch the vision off here. When it comes to Ashe, now there's a common misconception that support, like especially when you're playing enchanters, has to play with their ADC. Completely untrue. Really, when it comes to support, you want to play with whoever is doing well and facilitate them and help them grow. That's
So, yeah. First of all, Memerson, yeah, for sure. He's basically saying like, save your ult for when you can guarantee you can hit it. But it's funny that he says this because I showed you guys this at the top of the stream. Ash is gonna go, I think, 3 or 4 and 12 here. So he's like, yeah. So like, don't play around people that suck. And it's like, yeah. Honestly, looking back at this game from like a macro level, we probably could have roamed. We didn't really have a lot of people to play around. I don't think. Let's keep watching, but I think the Camille actually did okay. We probably could have roamed up to mid a little bit more and dealt with that, and that's something that we haven't been doing enough of during the like loss streak that we've been having. Is kind of like we've sort of been in these positions in a lot of games as support where we have an ADC or a jungler in particular, but top sometimes, who are like throwing, right? And we haven't roamed with any sort of like permanence to, I don't want to say like walk down lanes for people that are ahead, but like try and like get them ahead even further, like get them basically to snowball. Instead, particularly in this game, which we'll see in a sec, we just like sit on this guy, and it's like completely useless.
Going to be like your job as support. Now, if your Ashe is like 5-0 or 0-5, sorry, do not play with her. Like, fuck her, dude. Do not. You don't need to play with her. But let's just say she's like 1-0 and your Camille's like 1-0. At that point, you probably want to play with your Ashe just because they have a lot of threats that can dive in. Obviously, it depends on the situation, but that's a skill that you kind of just want to slowly get better at. Is who do I want to play with? Who do I need to put resources with? Like by being near them. Who do I want to get vision for? Who do I want to be like in close proximity just in case they might get engaged on? Those kind of questions. Those are the questions that are going to be able to get you to have the most consistent impact on Sona.
Yeah, it's like totally
and just on support in general, to be honest. Okay, so the next thing is going to be Camille. Now, when it comes to Camille, really, as I said, is like if she's strong, you can more play around her, but really just watch out for when she's going in. You can combo ult with her. You guys can pick off their backline pretty well with that. Really just depends. To go into their comp, Singed.
So like that's kind of interesting feedback. I'm not sure how like valid that is. Be interested to hear what you guys' thoughts are, but like yeah, for sure. Camille gets into the backline. That no problem with that. My problem with that feedback as Sona is like if I try to run up through the front line to ult the backline, depending on positioning, of course, and like there's all these other questions that need to be considered. I have a hard time believing I live. Like the ult might go off and my team maybe will work with it, but like I have a very difficult time believing that getting into the backline would work. Now we could try and flash in, maybe, but particularly with like a team comp like this, I feel like Zed just goes on to us. Vayne just targets us as we run up. Wukong just spins us out, knocks us up. I don't know how I feel about that. I think the premise is obviously correct. I just don't know in terms of practice how viable that would actually be.
Make sure you're respecting the Singe distance so that he can't.
It wouldn't be a problem if you were tanky. Hey, that's actually not a bad point. Yeah, if we went Guardian, that might make a difference. Just a hot tip, at almost any elo below diamond, if you soak up the laner's XP, they'll interleave the game. Yeah. that's a good point. I think, yeah, the trick is obviously finding that sweet spot where, like, you're there when they need you there to secure a kill. And we've done that a little bit, where we'll show up and, like, our W is, like, pivotal to winning the fight, or our ult is pivotal to winning the fight. And that's just a skill that unfortunately we're gonna have to just play more to get better at, right? I think we can obviously watch VODs and shit, but like at a certain point, it's like you just have to have a feel for like, okay, when do I enter a lane and start soaking XP, or when do I enter a lane and like fuck up someone's flow, or whatever you want to call it, in an effort to secure something.
Just run in and just play
Aftershock Sona. I love it. All right, sorry.
You for free. Next thing that you need to do is make sure that you also ult him. If he's going in on one of your teammates and try to facilitate them and help them get out in contrast. When it comes to Wukong, really...
Sorry, that was the feedback for Zed, which is totally fair, right? Like, if he ults onto someone or he like targets onto someone, try and ult him when he hits that.
Just be careful of him dashing in. Keep an eye on him. Make sure that if he dashes in, you get that ult off. If you have exhaust, making sure you exhaust him. And this game, I definitely, just to go to your summoners, I definitely would have gone exhaust. Sona's not a champion that can hard carry through Ignite. It's very hard unless you have a very dominant lane, which is not the case here. I mean, your lane's decent, right? But you still wouldn't want Ignite just because your goal is to poke them out, not kill them in a lot of these Sona lanes. What does exhaust do here? Amazing for Vayne, amazing for Zed, amazing for Wukong. Helps kind of against Singe to slow him down, but mostly for that Zed, Wukong, and Vayne. But yeah, I would definitely recommend you go exhaust.
So this was the point that we discussed in Discord a little bit, like yesterday and the day before that, which is like going going exhaust instead of ignite, potentially even considering going barrier in certain cases and being a little bit more flexible with that summoner spell. I think that's really good feedback, both from Memerson and a couple other folks in Discord, as well as obviously this guy who agrees with you guys, which I'm sure is really validating because obviously challenger coach. So
Okay, so yeah, with Wukong, really just making sure you watch out for his ult, making sure you ult him. Zed, make sure that you okay, if he goes in on one of your teammates and he ults and your ADC is still healthy, instantly ult, because here's what's gonna happen. There's two options. Zed's either gonna get ultied and CC'd, and also maybe even Asher'd after or like taunted. He's also, if he dodges it, then he's going back and your ADC is fine. So really it's win-win for you if he instantly ult. The only way it would be bad is if he already is gonna kill your ADC and then he can just go back and then it doesn't matter, right? So there's really differences there. Now, when it comes to Vayne and Lux in teamfights, you're really not going to be interacting with them as Sona. If you can get a good ult on them, good, but do not overchase and do not dive into them. Your goal is to mostly peel for your backline and
I'm pretty sure that's all we do in this game. we try to trade with them, we run up and we're like trying to like 1v1 them or 2v2 them. We'll take a look in a sec, but yeah, it's good feedback.
Kind of maintain a good distance playing with your team and not really diving in deep, essentially. Okay, so that was kind of a lot of the...
And as a side point, one of the things that we did discuss after this game, because this was like day 1 of 2 of just like straight up inting, was like playing more conservative, which is like a much more basic way of saying what he's saying, which is like don't dive in to try and like land Qs and like make plays, particularly in lane phase, particularly against this comp.
Position. Now let's go and look at the 2v2. What is this lane about? This lane is really about two things. Now, when it comes to lane, another tip that I'll give you is that try to think about the one thing from each champion that you want to avoid, and then play lane like that. Now, when I think of Vayne, I really think that like you don't want to overextend with your trades because she can trade it back quite well with press the attack. I also think she's low range. She has struggles in general if she gets poked out, so you don't even need to kill her. If you just poke her out, that's good enough. Your Ashe is going to have range on her. Also, always try to compare ADC to ADC, like in a simplistic way. Like, Ashe is just going to outrange the Vayne in general, so that's kind of where... that's kind of the difference between Ashe and Vayne in that, like, small context. Now, when it comes to Lux Q...
So, like, one of the kind of interesting things about what ends up happening in this lane, and again, we're talking a lot pre-game, mainly because I think he identifies the fact in this coach that, like, we actually don't play micro that badly here. Personally, our team does, but like we make a couple of mistakes that I think we look at. One actually just happened in the last game, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about in a sec because you'll see it. But what was kind of interesting about this is like he's saying, it's a poke comp. I'm pretty sure both Ashe and myself, but mainly Ashe, gets landed with like 5 or 6 Qs over the course of lane phase and just gets all in as a result. So like the idea of like just poke and like back out and like use, you know, like yes, but like not happening. Anyway, sorry.
Luxy, those are the two things that you really want to watch out for. Other than that, not much. She has barrier, right? So you don't have to worry about that. A lot of this lane, as I said, is just poking them out. Don't feel the need to kill them. Especially if you overextend against this Wukong, against this Lux, you're going to get punished, and then you're kind of detracting from what your goal is on Sona, which is going to be this playstyle of KDA. Like, you have a very heavy KDA playstyle on Sona, where you just want to not die, facilitate your team, use pings a lot. Pings are very underrated, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, something along those lines.
And like, these are things we all know, right? Like, these are things we've talked about pretty much every stream, which is that like, hey, we gotta play conservative. Hey, let's get a Magi's to force ourselves to like really consider the fact that like we cannot die, right? Like, if we die, we lose Magi stacks, and therefore as a result, we're gonna like think about that more, even if it impacts our build, which obviously Magi's isn't necessarily always a part of, depending on the situation. But like, that's a very broad point, and one of the reasons that I opted to do some of these VOD review type requests for our play was just because it's easy to talk broadly about things. It's a lot more difficult to talk about the specifics that incorporate that. Like, hey, don't die. Yeah, I got it. Hey, farm under tower. What? Okay. Like, here's specifics of like what you should be doing. That's sort of the idea. Anyway. Have I ever gone for Relic Shield? Not with Sona. It probably could work, but we've talked about this before. I like to poke a lot with Sona, which is not necessarily a problem in the context of what we're discussing here. The problem is more that I get aggressive with it, and part of my tilting is not like getting like aggressively like pissy or whatever, but I try to make things happen for my team in a way that's detrimental to myself. And so we do have situations where I'm tilted and I try that, and we have an ADC or a jungler or whatever who will take advantage of it and get like 6 kills, right? And then we win, which is awesome. The problem is if we're on a team that's not like that, which unfortunately has been the case for like most of this week, I die, someone else also probably comes in and dies, and then the game's just over. Or the laning phase is definitely over. We're down like 2-0, 3-0. So yeah. Anyway, let's keep going.
Usually your job is like enchanter, is something along those lines. Be a KA player. Like obviously don't like be 50 feet behind your team. Like be close enough to help them and go for the ults that you can get risk free. But a lot of it's going to be risk management and just understanding like, was this too greedy? Did I need to die here? Those types of questions are really going to help you improve. Now, next thing we're going to talk about before we get into this game, and I know it's been a long pregame, is going to be jungle. When you see the Sims where you show top side, their bot lane hasn't showed, you know their jungler starts bot side. What does that mean? Unless you get cheese ganked, which is really unlikely for Wukong to do, you're fine till about like 4 minutes, like around that timer. So
but
really,
I think we fucked this
you
up.
don't like he's gonna path from bot camps to top camps. That's usually what happens.
Yeah,
People
as an
path
aside,
bot
this
top.
is helpful for top 2 in case you're like, what the fuck does this have to do with what I do? Depending on where you see the other champion, which is like pretty basic, and this is pretty basic stuff, but like, hey, let's just reiterate it. It's fun. For most champions, you have until like 3:40 to 4 minutes before you have to consider like getting ganked. And so for support, it's particularly relevant because you can use that to inform when your wards go down. You can make decisions around like, okay, what's the cooldown on my wards? Can I use it early to like have it back up by the time I need to worry about the ganks? And you know, the same goes for top to a certain degree. But obviously that also comes into play with top in terms of like what you're doing for lane prio, understanding that like they started bot and they're coming top. Like if I push all the way in, then I'm gonna be fucked if I'm in there at 4 minutes and I don't have any wards down. Particularly if you're a hero that doesn't have escapes. So I mean that's something I always consider with Garen, and that's like something that's actually useful to take from support and then apply in other lanes. I'm sure you guys all know that, but talking it out's good for me too. So
bot to whatever side they started to the opposite side. That's probably an easier way to explain it.
like, yeah, relatively obvious.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into this lane. So the first thing that I'm looking at is going to be 350.
So like, okay. I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is not like a mistake we make a lot. But literally everything I just said we do wrong. You guys can't really see the mini map down here, but we're pushed up at 350. So I'm pretty sure what happens is Wukong just comes and kills us. But let's see.
So right here, you see Wukong. This is just something as support when you're like idling and you don't have much to do and you're just in the brush. Get in the habit of just looking at the map. This is going to be a fundamental that you cannot ignore. Like this fundamental is, I almost want it to be like put as like a part of the support role because it is just so important for support that you take glances at the minimap, really in any lane, but especially on support just because you have a lot of downtime, right? Like especially on enchanters, you're not typically like looking for all in angles. You're kind of just chilling sometimes. Like these scenarios, watch out for that jungle and see them transition here. It gives you so much information. You know that Wukong, first of all, can't gank you instantly because he's low HP, so he needs time to heal. So you're probably fine for a while. You know that he has about 2 camps just because he started bot side, and this is something you'll get better at, is understanding that camps spawn around, I believe, 350. Let's see, or is his camps up? Yeah, his camps are up. So they spawn around that time if he starts bot side, so you don't have to worry about Wukong for a while. So what that means is...
So, like, here's what's actually happening in my head during this game, because I think it's actually important to understand, like, it's really easy for a coach who's looking at a VOD to be like, okay, here's what you should be doing. It's a lot harder for us as players, I think, who are doing something else in the moment to be like, you know, take that into account and like, what does that mean for my play, right? Like, how do I actually incorporate that? Yeah, I should have seen Wukong coming. Got it. I should have been aware at 4 minutes. Normally I am, but I should have been aware of that. Got it. What was I doing in the moment that I shouldn't have been doing, though, to like reevaluate what I'm looking at, right? I think that's like one of the things with a lot of coaching that really pisses me off is like you watch these coaching VODs and they're like, here's what you should have been doing. And it's like, can we unpack what I was doing though and like why that was not what I should have been doing? Like I understand, I guess it's hard to verbalize this, but like it's one thing to be like, here are all the things you should have been doing. It's another to be like, here are the things you were doing and here's how to break out of the habit of doing that in order to do the thing that you should have been doing, right? So like in the context of this lane, what's happening is, and we actually mentioned it in the lead up, is I'm poking. I'm running up, I'm queuing, which makes no fucking sense if you look at it now from the context of the VOD, right? Like, it's very easy with a VOD to be like, Kuze, what the fuck is wrong with you in this lane? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, come on. But the reality is like, okay, the takeaway and the reason this is kind of important, I think, is at 4 minutes, it's like, okay, I need to stop poking and like consider the time a little bit more seriously. Because I'm not idling in a bush. He's like, you're idling in a bush, you need to be looking. I'm not idling in a bush. I'm looking to land cues. But the point is that I probably should have been idling in the bush. So I think that's useful just to like consider for your own gameplay too when you look at your VODs, is like trying to remember what the fuck you were thinking. And if you're being coaching yourself or having someone coach you, like what the fuck was I thinking during that moment that like I shouldn't have been doing, right? Because like it's one thing to be like, here's what should be happening, it's another to be like, okay, here's what you're doing.
That when it gets to a certain point around, I'd say 4:45.
So we just die.
That's
here.
probably going to be the point where like you could start, or no, it'd be more.
We just die here. Well, first of all, he doesn't notice this, but I think our Ashe gets caught. I think we thought we had better like opportunities to do something here because Lee Sin is like right in that bush right there.
Or around 4:40.
So I fucked this
He
up.
probably do two
This
camps
is
and look
actually
for you.
interesting.
See, right now he's still doing his gromp at around 4:30. Now the problem here is that, and we'll watch this right now. When your ADC goes in general, be very cautious with how you play with them. Like, you need to help them as Sona, right? But you don't want to overcommit and put yourself in danger, because then you're just going to be a free kill every time. So far, this is okay. Like, you're trading on Lux, This is absolutely fine the way you're playing it. Now, this forward movement here, this is where it becomes bad, because you cannot, like, your Q's not up. You can never kill this Lux. Play back. I mean, there's not much you can do, right? But at least you're not going to get condemned back and die here. And also, you don't know where the Wukong is. Or no,
So there's a huge mistake here that's just a fundamental thing to take a step back on, because I think a lot of this is pretty obvious to everyone. But like for me, wasn't even considering Vayne's knockback. Right, so there's that. Vayne's gonna knock you back if you get behind her in the turret range. It's a pretty good just general thing, particularly for supports. Like that's not where you want to be positionally.
What I mean by you don't know where the Wukong is that Wukong could be here at any second. He could have skipped Gromp. He could have still came. He could even be like right here, ready to flash over. So really you have to be careful of that. Results in you dying pretty easily there.
Still feels
okay,
bad,
next
man.
thing I'm gonna look at is gonna
Still
be
feels
1050.
bad.
So this is a very similar situation to the last thing, where if your team is going for a dive, any play, make sure that you understand how can I help and do I need to help and how do I help. I think I might have repeated that twice, but your team's diving.
Okay, so like so this is like one of those plays where you just watch it and you're like, oh my god. I thought we have a 4-man dive here into a pretty low Lux Vayne. And so what I'm I'll let it play, but what I'm trying to do is to take turret aggro, let these guys get the kill. Actually, I think Ashe might have even had arrow here. And then just bail and watch what happens.
I think what you do right here is fine. Like, you tank a turret shot. That's fine. Perfectly fine. You get the Lux kill. As soon as you see that, you need to back up. There's nothing you can do right now for your team. Like, even if you get this damage on Vayne, she's already healthy. Understand that you need to run away. And I know you're not going to, like, understand every single situation just from looking at this. But try to think about these situations in your future games. When am I overextending? When am I trying to overtly help when I should just be running away? Because you overextending here and putting yourself in an aggressive position allows them to get a very easy kill on you. Where honestly, Zed did not even have to. Oh, he did have to flash. Okay.
You didn't need to.
Even if you live, you're still blowing flash for flash, and that's not going to be worth just because you need your flash more than Zed needs his flash.
Also, Ashe dies here somehow.
Support.
I don't know how Ashe.
Okay, next thing I'm looking at is going to be 1420. It's just a small thing I want to mention in general on enchanters is that know the distance that you have to help your ADC. Right here, when you're clumping, there's two problems with this. First problem is going to be when you.
This one, when you're watching this as a fucking VOD, oh my god, dude, it's so painful. It's so painful to watch yourself in these positions, and you're just like, oh god, you're just like caught red-handed, right? Like, what the fuck are you doing here? Of course, Lux is gonna Q you and then ult and probably get a double kill. Like, why? But I think you gotta be honest with yourself sometimes. I would point out, just to make myself feel slightly better as we watch it, that this was the worst game I've played in a while. We were fully tilted by this point, but I really wanted the coach to, you know, it's better, and we've talked about this before, I think, to like learn from your worst possible moments than to try and pretend. You see this on coaching all the time too, which drives me insane. get these people who like want coaching, but they also want to play like talk about VODs where they went like 10-1. It's like that's not useful. Like, yeah, you stomped lane. Are you trying to impress the coach? You're paying money for it. Just fucking to pick a shitty game and focus on what's wrong. Anyway, side tangent. Here we go.
You push in this wave and you don't have vision on the map. Like, you know where Singed is, right? You don't know where Zed is, I believe. I guess you have kind of like he's probably not going to be here by this point. But the problem is you don't know where Wukong is. So what can you do to change this? Here's what we can do. Okay, so first of all, you can ping Lee Sin to stay, push in this wave, have him base where they don't know if he stayed or not, and then go up here and then maybe get a small ward right here or a small ward over here. Now, you do have to kind of be careful because the Vayne locks are missing on the map, but assuming like, let's go back a little bit. I believe you saw Vayne base. Yeah, at this point you know Vayne's base because she's not showing on the wave. So you know that at the very least it would just be Lee Sin and Wukong. Or sorry, Wukong and Lux. So you're probably going to be okay considering you guys aren't that weak. So you can go ahead and just get like a shallow vision. Like they're not going to be here instantly, so you can get a ward right there. You can maybe go for a ward over. But if you see Lux missing too much, then Wukong gets the flank on you, that's when you want to be careful. But all I'm saying is that push in this wave, look for opportunity to get some shallow vision like in this brush, and just go for that. Another problem here is that when you walk up, not only do you not know where Wukong is,
something he doesn't mention as well is like there's really not a real reason to walk up. There's no turret plates at this point in the game. So like I'm literally walking up here. The goal in my mind at this point is to hit the turret as many times as I can to proc my support item, which is just like you're going forward for 45 gold and you're putting yourself, like he's saying, there's so much unknown about this game that like that's not worth it.
you also clump up. Worst thing you can do when playing with your ADC is clump up
micro.
like this. You're giving them exactly what they want, a double chunk. And Wukong kind of fucked that up. But the problem still stands that you should definitely be not clumping there. Okay, next thing I look at is going to be A15. 18-15.
This is my favorite part of the whole pod. I hope you guys enjoy this.
Right here, when you see your Ashe is this far up, there's a certain point.
Like, what the fuck is Ashe doing here? I remember we were playing this in stream, and you guys were losing your fucking minds in chat. Because it's like, what is he doing, man? We have no vision down here. We haven't even placed wards because we're coming back in the lane. I see Wukong, we see Wukong up a little bit here. And so I bail, or I try to bail. And then Ashe, for some reason, like volleys and walks into ward bush. Holy, okay, alright.
Where she's just dead. Right here, she's just dead. She has no flash, right? She's just an easy target. Wukong has ult. There's nothing you can do right here. I want you to look at this. Right here, you should be dead. Right now, Lux should Q you.
Yeah.
You're gonna get Vayne's gonna go over. You're gonna die to Vayne. You should 100% die here, or maybe you blow your ult and you maybe live, but that's still an ult wasted. Also, Wukong maybe could have gone on you if they had Lux skewed you. Even if you dodge Lux,
I don't know about that pathing either.
you're still putting yourself in a risky position when there's nothing you can do to save the Ashe. That's the important thing to notice, is that there was nothing you could do. Even if you played that perfectly, the Ashe does not live there. That's why it's important for you to just understand those situations and back up. Now, next thing I'm looking at is going to be 20 minutes.
It happens again in this one, I'm pretty sure.
Now, this is another situation
Literally
where you're
right
trying to
here,
help your team. You're tunneling way too much on this. I want you to watch this. Okay, so you go up here. First problem here is that you need to ward, whenever you're going to your team, put down that vision right here in this brush so that if someone comes through here, you guys know and you can maybe go up or play accordingly. Vision is key. It gives you the information that you need for your team, not only you, but also your team to make more, like, smarter plays, essentially. Now, notice how you just instantly ran to your team, ignored everything else. There's a Wukong trailing you guys, there's a Zed behind you. And it just makes it really easy for Wukong to come from this brush and just easily get you guys.
Hey,
What's
we
the
landed
correct
our
play?
ult, though.
Leave your
Yeah,
team,
no,
they're
it's
already
fucking
dead. Maybe
doomed.
put down a ward, maybe ping them. That's about as much as you can do there.
So like this was a game I think ultimately ended like 0-4-8 or something, 0-4-11. Like it wasn't the clips he's showing are like our only deaths in the whole game. So it's tough because you're in a position here, and this is just color commentary. I don't want to detract from what he's saying. Everything he's saying here is right. He's doing a very good job coaching as far as I'm concerned. But it's tough when you're playing, particularly Sona, in a position like this where like I wish he would show scoreboard. I think the only person that was sorta ahead might have been Camille. But like, what else are we supposed to do? Right? Like, he's right. Like, we're gifting additional kills behind what should have been happening. Like, here it should be 2 kills, and I don't know. I think he's gonna say that we should push mid with Ashe, which would have made way more sense. Or maybe even bot. I think it's mid though. And you're just put in a position with games like this, or I have like a psychology thing where I'm put in positions with games like these where I want to help. Right? That's why I play support. I want to help you get ahead. And it's really unnatural for me coming from like WoW or any other games where you play like a priest or whatever to just like let people die. But that's what you should do here. So that's what it is.
Also, maybe if you go the long way and play with Zed. Also, you could have just gone mid and pushed. Like, there's a lot of options.
It's like a free
and
tower.
And maybe if you had
right
gone mid with push, you guys don't lose this.
That was like a fucking free tower. Like, look at this. There was
like
like 5 health on this tower. Ashe
also,
and I could have just
run this down.
run
Also, maybe if you go the long
this
way
down.
and play with Zed. Also, you could have just gone mid and...
We literally just run this down, take this, and leave bot. And then maybe even get bottom tower. I don't know how much health is on that. But yeah.
Push. Like, there's a lot of options. And maybe if you had gone mid with push, you guys don't lose this 2v2. Because they have Shen ult, so...
I mean, I'm 100% confident Ashe still dies here. I don't know if he actually did, but he probably did.
You with Shen ult here, you guys can easily get a double kill here.
Yeah, I mean...
So just really try to, like... It's really more you're losing out on opportunities just by tunneling on trying to help people that are already dead. And I know you don't think they're dead going in. But... that's like where you're just gonna have to look back and really try to realize like, okay, I was tunneling too much and helping my team here, something like along those lines. All right, last thing I'm looking at is gonna be 27 minutes as we go into this late game.
I kind of want to see what my build was. I can't remember what we built here. I don't think we went tier.
So the last point that I wanted to make is that right here you see the Zed. As a squishy and Sandra support, you always have to be...
Yo, check this shit out. This is a fucking travesty. This made me so... I forgot this happened in this game. This made me so fucking mad watching myself do this. Watch this.
Thinking, where are the enemies and where do I need to go if I'm in danger? Right here, perfectly fine for you to clear the ward, but you should be kiting up and not right. What's the reason for this?
Like, you don't even need him to tell you the reason. Hey, what's going on, Juki Cookie? You don't even need him to tell you the reason for this. There's a wave pushing in from mid. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to go clear this ward. I'm going to run back into the wave. There's like 2 people at least in the wave. I mean, we know that Lux is there. We just saw her. Pretty sure Zed's still there. We have a Lee Sin right here. Like, take the blasting cone even. Like, just get the fuck out of there. Go around. And then defend mid turret. Watch what I do instead. Oh my god.
Lee Sin is here to the left. Zed is to the right. Simple as that. Learn how to, like, play with whoever...
Like, how do you even coach this? It's like, yeah, you ran it right into the team. Like, he's so fucking patient. You gotta give him some love. I mean, he's doing his best. This must be maddening for him to watch. Anyway, go on.
The closest member that you have is, so that you can put yourself in the most safe positions possible. Right here, really easy.
we just fucking appear, and Zed is like, okay, is this a trap? What the fuck? He just goes on us and gets a free kill.
Zed. Easy kill.
It's just... Jesus
okay,
Christ.
so that was all I had. Just to summarize kind of the...
In my defense, the game at this point is over. It was 30-18. But, like, it doesn't change the fact that, like, why would you do that, you know? Like, I think something we can work on that's a very basic tenet that he hasn't really focused on, that I know I need to work on, looking at my own VODs and like, looking, you know, going on a losing streak like this is actually helpful because it does really force you to, like, focus very, very intensely on, like, small details, because... you need to understand what's wrong with your gameplay. And it's really easy cop-out to be like, my team sucks, right? But I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I know, like, high-end streamers will say that shit all the time. But the difference between high-end streamers and people like me and people that are, like, gold or lower is that, like, for us, it's an excuse not to analyze what went wrong for us. Oh, you know, I was 4-2. My team was, you know, 1-7 and ran it down top lane, so we lost, right? 1-7 is probably not enough. Let's say like 1-12. But like, that doesn't. You don't learn anything that way. Why did you die 2 times? Maybe you didn't need to, right? Like, what could you have done to keep your team alive, right? So for me, that's like one of the most infuriating things about post-game lobby toxicity is like, you're not a pro. You're just not. So even if you're 6-2 or 6-1 and you feel like you hard carried the game, you didn't because you lost. So like, there's something you could have done better. And And I think that's why I was like so fucking frustrated after this whole thing, and still am to a certain degree because we still can't win a fucking game. But like, yeah. Anyway, the basic thing that we can do here is stop inting late game because we think the game's over, right? The game is pretty over here, right? Like, when we took bottom tier 2, if you look down the mini map, tier 1 we know is out like 2 health because we talked about it when we were inting up in top lane. Camille's pushing top and like hypothetically might be able to get that turret over there. So like if we actually like, and this is 100% inting because like we see it coming and it's like a train wreck, you know, like okay, fuck. But at this point, I know I just didn't give a shit. Like, all right, it's 31-18, like this game's over, whatever. They have Baron buff, it's fine. They're on soul point, you know. But like the reality is like you don't know. I'm pretty sure. I mean, our Ashe at this point is like 5 and 12. I'm pretty sure. But it doesn't change the fact that like you don't have to die here. I don't know.
Points that I had, really the biggest emphasis that I noticed looking through your VODs, and I know I sound like a broken record, is that you have to get better at understanding when you can help your team and the distance that you should put yourself when trying to do so. And in a lot of these cases, it's, even if you played it perfectly, there's nothing you can really do. Last thing that I want to talk about.
It's because I gave him a game where like legitimately my argument is like the argument like my team is shitty was actually somewhat valid, but like it doesn't change the fact that like I think at a fundamental level he's looking at this game and he's found what, like 10 things that's wrong in my gameplay. Like if we are not being honest with ourselves and we're like, well, it's team fault and we just go next, you know, a challenger guy can find 10-20 things wrong with your game. You should be able to find at least like 4 or 5 on your own. You don't have to do coaching to find that kind of shit, you know?
About is going to be, or the second point that I wanted to make, just to summarize, is going to be understanding when you can just push the wave and go for that vision. Like ping your ADC, learn how to use pings. Pings are your biggest tool on support. Very underrated skill. It's going to allow you to tell your, like, give an idea of.
Right, and we talked about this a little bit. We tried to do that more. This was day 1 of the slide. We tried to do that more day 2, and it did help a little bit. But he's absolutely right, you know. But that's something we've done. We tried to incorporate a little bit more.
What you're planning on doing, give some maybe hints to your team of what they should be doing based off like your, because usually support has pretty good insight into the game because you can look at the map very well and you have a lot of time to think because you're not in like a constant state of laning, right?
True.
So it's going to matter, and also understand that people are not going to always listen to your pings, but that's okay. At least it's your input. Just don't spam ping because then people will get tilted. Lastly, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is just understanding where people are and where you need to go to get to safety when going for vision, when clearing wards, when being relatively like in a dangerous part of the map. All right, well, thanks for watching, man. I hope you have a great.
So something he doesn't discuss here in this VOD, and I think I have another one. I don't know if we want to go through it right now and get back into the games, but is this idea of warding over walls as like a very simple way to more safely ward. And this is something I'm going to pontificate about real quick, just because it's something that when we were playing in like silver or lower or normals even, actually even in the game we just played with the Leona, right? Like it's so easy just to pop a ward over a wall, and unless you have to worry about like, I mean, obviously to a certain extent you have to worry about like Zed, but he's still doing something blind here, or like Zoe, like they're going blind into it. Like the odds of them hitting you with something are like pretty shitty. If they do, you just run, right? So often supports at lower elo will walk directly to where they're gonna ward. So like, let's say I wanted to ward here for some reason. I used to do this too. I'm not trying to come off as like I know what I'm doing and you don't, right? Like, but like would walk in here and then ward, right? You walk in here. The problem is like if there's someone here, or if they actually are here, they just fucking go in on you and you die. You can walk to here and just ward and then leave, right? It's so much fucking safer. Like worst case scenario, if you're here and they are here and they see the ward pop up, it's like a Zoe or a Zed. I guess Zoe's the best example. She tries to like paddle star or whatever, browse over the wall. Like she might hit you, but even then you're like closer to your turret. Your team can come down lane. Like you're in a decent spot. Whereas if you're here trying to ward like right next to where you're warding, like you're just fucking dead. So I think that's like a very simple thing that I'm trying to work on as well. Because like when you get feedback like this at like a really high level, it's very difficult, at least for me, to try and address all of these things at once, right? Like know when to like go and help your team. Like okay, much easier for me to work on like, okay, this person's hinting, I just need to leave, right? Or like, okay, I've died a couple times with warding. I just can't do that. Or like, okay, the wave is pushing in. Let's take the long way, right? Like, let's play conservative. But I thought the piece on this specifically around matchups and what summoner spells to take was really interesting. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I know we're spending a lot more time on that than maybe I initially anticipated us doing. But I hope that was somewhat helpful to your guys' like understanding of stuff you can do to like climb. Because if I'm not climbing, hopefully you guys are. So that's that. That's all I can do, right? Is like I'll live vicariously through your guys' climb as I fucking road to silver it in gold 2 and gold 3.